And today we have Skinamarink. Oh, I had so much to say and I don't even know what to say. This format for this review, this will get you in the mood for the film you're about to see. Looks like shit, looks weird, obscure, you can't even like really see the subject or make me out. That's the movie. I'll give it this. It's one of the most creative titles for a movie so far this year. Granted, we're like 18 days into the new year. Skinamarink. What the hell is this movie? What's it about? Nobody's heard of it. Really, the only people that have heard of it are people that are kind of in like cinema circles or horror circles, and this has just kind of gone viral more or less. I go to a local art house theater that I always talk about whenever I get a chance, and of course in doing so, you see the more obscure trailers or trailers for more independent films that are out there, right? Sometimes you'll catch one on YouTube if you also are a cinephile like me or a nerd, and sometimes, you know, IGN will show something, or you'll see it online somehow. I caught this trailer a few times and I said, oh, this looks like nothing I've seen before. It looks interesting. It's a vague trailer. It's creepy, unsettling. It looked promising. So, I mean, obviously I'm game for it, and I had a few friends that were as well. If it was good, I'd recommend going in blind, but I can't in good conscience recommend this film. I heard another reviewer I like to follow on TikTok, Cinema Joe. He very appropriately said this film is the closest we will ever get to being able to go to a movie and watch paint dry, basically. This film has so much potential for creepy, nightmare fuel, tension, dread, and anxiety, and then just nothing happens. I mean, yes, I'm being facetious. Things happen, but my God. Director is a Kyle Edward Ball, who this is technically his quote-unquote directorial debut. He's done, I think, a music video and a short film. The IMDb was virtually non-existent, but this is the first film that he's done that has gotten anything in the area of acclaim or attention. But you know me, I gotta be fair and I gotta be honest and be able to look at this film for what it is in addition to my enjoyment, or in this case lack thereof. I'll give it credit like this. The way the film is shot, it's like it's being classified as found footage. They don't really make it clear, because some shots seem like they could be like first person, and other shots show that our two main characters, quotations, main characters, are in the shot. So I don't know. And then you wonder, well, is it from the point of view of this being the potentially what is the Skinamarink? Is it just supposed to be just an omniscient third person audience? I don't know, but the whole thing is basically, I could best describe it as 80s lo-fi VHS horror. The year the film is set in, it tells you, is like 1995, so they make it clear like the era and kind of the vibe and all that. And literally, if you look up the plot summary when you're buying the ticket online, at least what I did when I bought my ticket, it just says that two kids wake up in the middle of the night, their parents are gone, and then all the doors and windows in the house have disappeared, and that's it. And then the film ensues from there. There's not really much in the way of solid narrative progression, explanation, much development. Things get more and more obscure, more questions for the audience as time goes on. Getting ahead of myself. The pros, drenched in atmosphere, I'll give it that. They nail the atmosphere they're going for, which is like, it's like this, right? Dark, grainy, so much dark and grainy. I will admit, it was creepy, because a lot of this film, and I'm not even exaggerating, the director made a choice. And this choice in this film was, I'm allergic to putting whatever the object of the scene is in, you know, center or clearly on frame. So much of it is just dark hallways, and you see door frames and corners and obscure shots, and whenever one of the kids is in frame, it's only like his feet or his legs or a portion of the body. Whenever something creepy is happening, it's mostly off screen with just noises and just vague intonations. But the effect is achieved where, I will say, when it's dark, it's not pitch black. What the old VHS tapes did was, in the darkness on the screen, it's like the static and just the ambient, like just the film is like burbling and whirling, and just kind of, it almost always makes it seem as if there is something there. It does add a certain layer of like, did I see something? Maybe I think I see something. You can't quite tell what's happening. Sometimes you think you might have trick of the light or lack thereof, and the shadows and all that. It plays with this concept in a very creepy way, but when nothing really comes of it, and that's the entirety of your movie, that's when things start sinking. If I'm being honest, there is one scene in the movie that I thought was very creepy and almost kind of scary. Like, there was one very creepy scene. If you watched it, if you watched it, first of all, my condolences. I'm here for you in this trying time. But there is one scene when one of the kids is first summoned by this entity up to the bedroom. You see like the outline of a person, and then it's looking under the bed, and then looking up from the bed. And yeah, there was a lot of tension in that scene. But throughout so much of this film, nothing happens so much that they're trying to crank the tension up to get to something that never ends up happening. The other positive that I had, which is more from a, you know what, proud of you, good job. So as I said, this is an independent film. Production company logo at the beginning is IFC Midnight. If you don't know IFC, it's the independent film company, or where they just, you know, it's a lot of indie film publishing, a lot of hit or miss, but to their credit, they help get films published by, you know, smaller and independent artists and studios and all this, so kudos to them. From what I understand, the budget for Skinamarink was $15,000, give or take, and probably more than at this point. Its box office gross, from only being in a little over 200 theaters in this entire country, its box office is already close to like 900,000. So this film might actually crack $1 million, which means that they over 60 times their budget they've made back. So kudos, props, congratulations. Not even in a passive-aggressive way. It's admirable. I love to see a low-budget film able to get made, produced, and then get viral enough in this case, where it made a large profit. So, I mean, even though I didn't like the film, I gotta give credit where credit's due. Good job. But in terms of the pros, that's all I got. I mean, with this film, if I had to guess, probably halfway through, I was just waiting for it to end. I can't... By principle, I can't walk out of a movie. I have to see it through. And it's not that it was a dog shit film, it's just that so much of what's supposed to be creepy and scary, again, when your film is so vague and doesn't want to show you what's happening and kind of gives you an idea of what's happening but never fully explains it or what the cause of it is or what's going on, and when, you know, the creepy keeps on pumping up, and then whenever the scary happens, it's not scary, because this film's scary was one okay jump scare, and I think 2 or 3 small shitty jump scares, and then just the rest of it is just like dark, and then just the sound of like this weird, all this audio, the Foley work for this film is weird, because whenever the kids are walking, it's just like a crunch of feet on carpet, and it's always that crunch. And there would often be times where like you cut to a new scene and you're like, okay, I don't know where my characters are, where we are, and you wouldn't know anything until you heard the crunching of the feet, and you're like, oh, one of the kids walked into the room. Don't know which kid, but I know that must be what happened, because all I have to go by is literally squinting in the darkness and listening. And just, this film could have been something so much creepier and cooler. I usually really enjoy found footage films as like a genre for horror. I mean, Blair Witch, and back in its day, kicked off the whole craze. If you want to go back further, Cannibal Holocaust, which is a rough watch. I'm not sure I can recommend that to anybody, but Cannibal Holocaust was one of the first films to do found footage horror. Then Blair Witch did it in a more popular and more widely audience accepted format. And then you go, you know, fast forward even more, you have like Cloverfield, and just films since then, like some of my personal favorites like Grave Encounters, even The Last Exorcism. A lot of films have done, even a lot of films that do found footage that people don't always, you know, like widely or enjoy, I still take pleasure from. I loved the first VHS movie, and I even liked parts of VHS 2 and whatnot. But problem with that is that there was, even if it got weird and gross and maybe it wasn't a great story, there was at least story. Things happened. You could see what was going on. There was, you know, tension and creepy and horror, but it was all diegetic and made sense. And just, this was literally, the film ended, and out loud I turned to my friends and said, that was the weirdest Zillow home tour I've ever seen, that's just what it felt like. It was like a weird, poorly lit and shot tour of this like suburban family home. I don't want to get into a whole rant about it, but I'll leave it at this, which is that in my opinion, Skinamarink could have been something really cool, really revolutionary, different, immensely creepy, nightmare fuel. I mean, as it was, I did connect on some levels. There were some moments literally of like, you know, kids wandering through the dark, empty house with nothing but the sound of their footsteps to guide them, and it reminded me of times where I would get up and try to wake up my parents and just be like, Mom, and like trying to wake them up and try to like find your way through the dark hallways to get to the kitchen for a snack, and only the light of the TV in the living room and the darkness swallowing up the rest of the house. All these concepts on paper, or in this case on screen, would be promising and could lead to something much more, but for the case of this, they don't go anywhere. That's the problem. I'll give it to them. This was ambitious. This was ambitious and very, very artistic in its intent, but I personally feel like it really missed the mark. The roots are there. The chess pieces are on the board for this to be nightmare fuel and to be a scary experience. It actually reminded me a little bit, or a lot of bit honestly, of Paranormal Activity. But at least with Paranormal Activity, shit eventually happened and you could clearly see what was happening in the film. I don't mind if you obscure some shots. I don't mind if you leave some things to be interpreted by your audience or make things kind of vague and intent and all this. Apparently, critics didn't have a problem with any of this shit, or at least most critics didn't, I guess. Some critics, I don't know, whatever you call it, 75%. Audiences, on the other hand, most just fucking... They agreed it was creepy, but not good. You don't have to go see Skinamarink. You don't have to stream it. Unless you are insanely curious, then go ahead. I would give Skinamarink a... like a solid 2 out of 5, honestly. A 2 out of 5. A 2 out of 5. And that's saying something. I'm just giving it props for the good parts about this film are the ideas that were poorly executed. What it's achieved in terms of like monetary compensation. I'm giving it credit for something new, different, for being very creepy, having some tense moments and some creepy, almost scary bits here and there. I gotta say, I got the patience of a saint sometimes when it comes to slower cinema, but this was a slog, especially toward the end. I thought this film ended 5 different times and it didn't, and it just kept going. I wouldn't recommend streaming it. There's so many better horror films out there. There's so many better found footage films. I don't want to shit on the director either. I see your vision, good sir. I understand where you're coming from. I understand what you wanted to do. I personally did not like your execution on the matter. I hate shitting on movies unless they're actually pure pieces of shit. And this wasn't shit. It was just slow, vague, boring, bad. This could have been so much better. I will think about this film for a while. I will pretty much probably bring it up at some points in the future from a visual standpoint, as well as just a missed opportunity. Like I said in the title of this video, Skinamarink is really just a disappointing nightmare. It's just not even a good nightmare. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. And goodbye. Goodbye, travelers.